into a brand new wave, drowning out the noise that's tame. Liberty whispers through the brave, breaking free from every chain. Nullify the rules they crave, crypto beats that pave the way. Anarchy with minds that safe, algorithms new dawn today. Out of bounds and out of sight, building futures pure and bright. Escape the grip and win the fight. Welcome into the legacy ride. Beyond control we take a stand, casting off the iron brand. Freedom flowing through our hands, revolution's our command. Decentralize the way we plan, all together we expand. Breaking shackles for the clan, in this journey we're unpanned. Out of bounds and out of sight, building futures pure and bright. Escape the grip and win the fight. Welcome into the legacy ride.
And a very good morning to you. Like the layout? It's a new layout, everybody. Why don't you go like, subscribe, and get notified so you can have some more. But until then, let's get into the show. What is purpose? What is blockchain? And how can blockchain help support your ability to strive for your purpose in life as a human being? Let's get into it. Welcome in, everybody. I am Zach. Benjamin
Oh God, it's him.
Augustine. I am the legacy of Jennifer Kaiser. There's Greg, the self-visualing I can't read.
Self-stabilizing adherence is the word that I'm using. Yeah. Cryptic reference to something that people will be reading more of shortly. Not today.
And Andrew. Maybe. Yeah. And then there's Andrew Joseph.
Captain Baldhead himself.
So, and we already have a question from William who's in the chat. Purpose, what? I need to have a purpose? Do we need to have a purpose? What is purpose? That's the question. That's the good old question that we ask ourselves every day. Let's start that off, actually, everybody. What exactly is purpose?
I think purpose is novelty.
I think everybody already has a purpose. I think the challenge is to understand what it is.
As Greg puts in the comments for everybody. So read that, actually. We all have a purpose, but can you find it? Can you figure it out? Can you understand it? Like what?
And it's hard.
How do you attain it?
It's really hard to figure out one's purpose. It's something that we actually need help from each other to do, I think.
Push each other?
Yeah, to push. And that kind of coincides with what the blockchain can do for us as well. Not to say that it's deterministic and it's a tool. And even with like AI as well, you can apply AI tools as well to it. But you can strive for your particular purpose and understanding by understanding what blockchain can do for you and for your community. The thing is how can you attain blockchain to that level without it getting corrupted? Because it can get corrupted, just like any mechanism, any tool that human beings utilize, because we're all narcissists in our own right. It's all self-preservation.
I believe you're right. Yeah. I mean, we're also persistent.
We are. We define ourselves. Actually, you can't speak of anything that doesn't persist, can you? Because that which does not persist does not exist at all.
Good luck, William.
Well, if I've done it right, then it should only require effort to understand the specifics, and the detail should be relatively unnecessary to seeing the big picture. You know, you'll get a series of statements with some math that purports to verify it, and you can read the series of statements like plain language, and they make sense. With maybe the exception of some of the earlier statistical mechanics ones, because they get into things like link fluctuations that you'll have to look up. But the statistical mechanics frame is not the root either. So that's the trick, right? Like you're actually going to read that and go, huh, so it's all statistics. And then you're going to read the next chunk and you go up. So it's all continuum dynamics and smoothing and Einstein flavored shit. Sorry for the S word there, guys. Lost track of myself. I get excited about this. But then you'll read it this time in the third revision, which is a synthesis, and say, okay, so there's this broad substrate that we can talk about like this one way, and then there's this other way we talk about it in our current science. And you'll read the first chunk and go, okay, this is the minimal theory. This is what we can frame it in ontologically, and then here are the specific results we have that we've confused for separate, because they're not. Right? Physics ensues into chemistry, which ensues into biology, which ensues into us. Right? All of civilization is physics if we understood it properly.
And that's
play along.
And I think that's the issue with today's day and age is people don't necessarily understand the ontological aspect of what philosophy is. They hear philosophy and then they think abstract, but now apply it scientifically. But in reality, a philosophy goes even broader into the abstract because there's other different strains. There's epistemology, there's eschatology, there's teleology, there's ontology, and I think the ontological aspect in striving for figuring out, well, what is this essence of life? What does this mean? I think that's where we have to gravitate towards, and that you can kind of explain onto a physics level, not fully, because there's certain things that you're never going to understand, but you can certainly explain it physically. So go ahead, Greg.
Well, I think that's actually going to surprise people the most, is that if you really, really follow the one primitive in the theory, which is causality can't self-violate. As soon as something is causally bound to another thing, nothing in the future can happen that will break that. And as long as you remember and have observed some chain of events under some way of seeing them, you would not persist. You would not cohere as an individual if that were undermined. Our brains literally cannot break causality. They flow causally as best we can observe. We've never observed anything acausal, and if we could, we couldn't describe it.
It's applying the standard physics mechanisms of the universe, but then understanding that there's something beyond space and time, and finally trying to at least get a glimpse into the understanding of the quantum physical realm. Jumping from standard to quantum, it's like going 0 to 60, and you're going so fast that you still don't understand it, but you're there. We just have to kind of, how do we slow down? How do we slow down as we're approaching that quantum river, that endless river?
If you'd stop your perception of time flow perfectly and just step outside yourself and look at that moment and everything that's going on around it, that would be the challenge, right? How do you do that? Luckily, we have, like you said, epistemology, right? We have a way to take an ontological frame and describe it in ways that make sense to us and to others, right? It's, the ontology is just a special class of epistemology that aligns with architecture. And then from there we can build semantics, which incidentally, what I've been able to, at least, I'm not going to mince around it, right? What I think I've proven is that the whole thing, the whole stack right up from the base, doesn't just stop at biology. It continues right into our brain structure. And the way that we formed language is an unavoidable consequence of the driving forces that forced biology to begin with, and that forced chemistry to begin with, and that forced physics. And all of it just flows right from causal order. That's the contention.
That's how it starts with language. We're on a low wavelength of language, like the lowest bandwidth of that wavelength. Society has constructed it that way. In order to control parameters, whether it's establishing aspects of time constraints with linear time, or whether it's just low language, period, and the fact that the way that we speak, the way that we write, the way that we talk on such a low level that it's so simple that it dumbs us down and it keeps us lower in our understanding of everything, which we're never going to understand. We're not going to understand everything. We're human beings. We're mere
we will
mortals.
understand. We can. The best we can do is understand what we perceive as everything.
Exactly, and I think that's where we need to get onto the level of the quantum train, or jump onto the endless river of quantum intelligence.
Quantum
rather than
is actually another projection. Actually, you don't want to rely on the quantum, right? You want to look at what the quantum is looking at, and what the relativistic is looking at, and what classical physics is looking at, and see how they all fit together on a broader puzzle board, right? They
I think that's where
sense is one thing.
Yeah, I think that's where the idea of quantum intelligence is I think it's finding the balance between the standard, typical physical realm of space and time, and applying that relative aspect of space and time, and then going beyond and understanding that there's something beyond space and time. And if we can nail that, then we basically have the very basic understanding towards what
tweak. It's not necessarily beyond, it's beneath. It's the only correction I would make.
Yeah, beneath, beyond. It's an endless river. Let's just look at it that way. It's an endless river of possibilities. So, I mean,
right. We can see as far as we can understand. And in that sense, it is beyond, because it requires you to understand more. But in another sense, it was hiding in plain sight, because the world we are presented with is the world we live in, and the dumbest thing physics ever did, and it's been over a century doing this, was trying to pretend like somehow the world as they were examining it at the tiniest detail, and the world that we experience, was being assembled by some magical sense-making dust, right? That we as human beings were cohering an incoherent thing, rather than the thing being coherent all along and us being natural consequences of it.
You should have spelled right.
We tell ourselves linear stories because that's the only way we can make sense of things. But creation probably happened all at once.
Creation happened with a snap of a finger and with a breath.
All at once, exactly. Somebody executed the code and it started to run. Or if you want to use a frame, somebody spun up a magic spell and hit poof, right? Like somebody technique that we don't even understand because we can't see the substrate beneath the substrate, the hardware stack that's stacked away in God's back office, right? We don't get a look at that part. Cannot escape the machine. We don't see outside of it.
And I think that's where language comes into it, because God spoke and there was the universe, there was the heavens, and then the earth. Everything was whole. And so I think that's where language comes back to it. In our understanding of a concept within our time frame now, we need language. And I think that's where the code of blockchain effectively works.
Yeah,
I think
what's the most primitive language there is, right?
Yeah, math.
Binary math.
Yeah,
Ones and
zeros.
Built an entire mathematical world.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you got to think about it, right? I mean, we're using math to go against the state, right? The state is law. You know, can law risk novelty? Some people say they can. Some people say it can't.
Is it
law is just a primitive programming language, and we've just gotten better ones?
Well, I will ask you this, Andrew, and answer it. Is the state law?
They think it's law, but can I finish my point before?
No, go ahead. Finish your point.
The people think law and order, right? That's all you ever hear people say. We need law and order. We need law and order, right? Because that's where everyone goes to when they're scared. Okay.
Which is funny, because the natural primitive of the universe is causal order, which is in itself an inviolable law.
Mm-hmm. All right. Some people say we can't afford novelty. Some people say we can. Okay, that's law and order. We're using the bank. We're using math to try to compete against the law, right?
Well, I mean, that's how it feels from the inside, for sure.
There's people who think in the same way. Some people, they call themselves central banks, think we can't afford novelty, that we need to, fall in line with their perspective. And then there's people like us who are interested in freedom and novelty and ideas and things. We're forking off
and finding our own moment as opposed to living in someone else's.
Yeah, we're forking off into a different economy. We're creating a parallel economy, and they're trying to capture that parallel economy because they realize that their system is dying. And so it's really trying to, explain this to people. That's why we have more than one cell phone provider. That's why we have AT&T, T-Mobile, is because the market can afford novelty.
The machine is ravenous. There's never enough for it, is there?
No. It's a death cult.
It feels like that. Suppose that the thing that we're actually running, though, doesn't have to be that way, and that there's actually no particular human volition, as Mises would suggest, around any of the actions that these entities that we've set up to basically violate the proper order of things. The order they're violating, of course, is putting intelligence in place without refusal. Right? They've got these agencies that shove one way of seeing things down an entire population's throat, and those people don't have a right to say, I disagree, once the thing exists, right? You try to disagree in advance, and you're playing what-if games about an indeterminate, precisely in that frame future. And so, of course, you're going to lose the argument if the entire basis for their thing, like you said, is risk, and they want to avoid risk. The problem with that is that conflates the concept of risk with the concept of threat, right? A threat is a realizable downside risk, propagated by an agent, not the agent doing the determining, right? There is no risk or threat to a bureaucracy. There is a risk or threat to the people that run it, because agency is not reducible to a machine like that. Not like they've constructed it anyway. Bureaucracies are really crappy old computers in a way.
They are.
How do we manage to go beyond a bureaucracy?
We don't really. We build better ones out of machines that don't need people to make judgment calls. That's the beauty of blockchain, right?
And out of these machines, you allow for human beings to interact with these machines without having to have intermediaries that use them to their advantage, because we're all greedy, we're all prideful. But how can we find a circumstance to where we can we're never going to eliminate our pride or our greed, but at the same time where we can find a balance to where our pride and our greed can be kind of quelled, our envy, we can kind of quell it to a certain extent. How do we do that? And I think that's where blockchain comes into play.
Yeah. Well, the problem at the core of government is this: it's non-local, right? And I mean non-local in the physics sense here, not the weak sense of your local government. I mean the fact that your local government covers your whole town and you happen to be under the same sun, which was the first thing to give us the concept of a time passing, right? Befores and afters that we can count. That's human beings making time up, right? And you could see the sun move across the sky. And so we had time. And nighttime, we had the moon. And we got sort of weeks from moon phases and all this stuff. We got all these concepts built up that then became exploited by these people who, first thing they did was set up an atomic clock somewhere in the dead center of the country, give everybody devices that forces them to synchronize to it. What, by the way, turn that off. You really should turn off the atomic clock auto sync. You need local drift in your time for the time that you're seeing to feel natural to the time that you're living. Because it's not the same. Half a mile of altitude from the coast, if you're using the self-synchronizing atomic clock that's located, I think, in the center of Colorado. I think it's in Denver. Not sure exactly where. Might be a university town nearby there or something. But whatever the case, you're synchronizing up to these clocks that are away from you, that if you actually used a precise, you can buy an Amazon clock and test this yourself. Like, go get 2 really precise clocks off Amazon, synchronize them up, and take a road trip to Denver, leaving one at home. Stay for a week. See how far they drift. It's observable, right? And over time, over the course of a lifetime, you get time compression from the fact that it's monotonic, because we are not monotonic clocks. Our seconds, subjective. When you feel time extend, if there were no other clock to reference back to, it would seem like a long time passed while you were doing one thing, no more, right? Like, you would not sit there and go, wow, a lot of time just went by. I just got doing this one thing. Now time for a new moment is how you would see the world.
Yeah, that's fascinating, actually, because, I mean, if you really think about it, we are not meant to be pulled to a centerpiece. Like, we are meant to know it, to live between the cycles that are natural. So you get up in the morning. Why? Because the sun is shining into your face. So that tells you, I need to wake up. And then we go to bed every evening because the sun has gone down. And so that gives it's biological. I mean,
we linearize stories from our experiences, and our minds make the timing until we impose an outside clock and get ourselves a little internal 3-body problem, because your brain needs 2 reference points for that. When any clock is a reference to another clock, you get little oscillating waves in your brain, man. That's your time. You can't force it on to global time, because global time doesn't exist.
And if you really think about it, that's where we have a lot of issues with insomnia anymore, and it's the lack of the melatonin that we're producing, because we're so fixated on this linear, established, centralized time frame, to where somebody in the East, it's this time, somebody in the West, it's this time, 3 hours, but it's all really just, it's different based upon the sun and how the earth is rotating throughout that 24-hour circle in reflection towards how the sun is showing up in our atmosphere. And so that's, I mean, we try with time zones, but time zones fail just for the simple fact that we can't live that way.
Well, I mean, the stress you feel about time when you're feeling stressed about time, everybody knows that, right? You feel under pressure to be somewhere. That pressure is not fake. That's not imagined. That is physics pressure on your brain, because you are out of phase with your local reality. That's why it's feeling is physical damage to your brain being caused by the fact that you are out of phase. Being on someone else's time when it doesn't map to yours is toxic, not just dangerous, but self-destructive.
And that's where if you've ever had that, what seems like, I'm not going to say deja vu, but when it feels like you're in the middle of doing something and you're busy and you actually are getting things done, it feels that time actually like doesn't exist, to where like
And you're
it's
right,
two
it
o'clock.
doesn't.
Yeah,
That's the crazy
yeah,
thing. It doesn't
yeah,
exist in that moment.
yeah. Because like you start doing something, say at like 11 in the morning, you start getting active, you start doing something, you focus on something, and the next thing you know, it's 6 o'clock at night, and you're wondering, wow, where did time go? But
Mhm.
nothing really changed. Like you were in the moment,
Yeah.
working and being active and doing what you needed to get done, and that time really had no reflection upon how you're stylized towards the way that you're living and doing.
Right. Pro tip for bosses out there: if you want people to love working with you so much they never want to leave and do their very best work ever, insulate them from that time pressure. Don't put it on them.
Yeah, I've always wondered why, like especially in like warehouses, you walk around, especially, and I've noticed this when I would be on a contract for security and I do my round. You walk around and you see all the clocks everywhere. It's like, why? Why do you need a clock
Yeah,
to
it's a
show the
nightmare.
time? Yeah, because what's that going to do is that is after 2 hours in, somebody who does, I mean, nobody wants to work, but you know you have to work in order to live, right? In order to
Yeah.
afford things. But you look at the clock while you're in the middle of being productive. All of a sudden, you look at the clock. It's like it's only noon, and you start. Let's say your shift is 10 to 6, right? You look. I'm like, I just got here, like, and then that pressure starts building up. That
Yeah.
pressure is real, and then
Well, and think about
and
like
you.
this: second order, even break
Mhm,
time seems like a favor to you. No, it's
mm-mm,
not. All it does is make you more mindful of their clocks.
mhm. Yeah, because then it starts getting built into your mindset that like, okay, I'm here.
They
2 hours later,
incentivize you
I
to
get
think
a
on their
yeah,
time by giving you
yeah,
little bits and pieces of it back as if they could
yeah.
take it to begin with.
hmm When in reality, if they just didn't have the time, you would be more productive because you don't have that fixation of like, I need to get, I just want to get out of here and go home.
It
Like,
wouldn't
let's get
feel
this
like it
day.
every day.
hmm
Some days people would show up for 2 hours and peter out. Then other days people would be really into it. And I've seen this happen 1,000 times on my own teams because I inadvertently, before I figured this out physically, just lived like this, right? My own team, sometimes we're working till 7, 8, 9. Everybody just keeps going because they're into it. Sometimes we stop at 2. Sometimes we don't work at all.
See, this is what you do, everybody. You just listen and do chores, and time
Right.
doesn't matter.
Well, it matters. It really does. There's real time. The real noodle baker for everybody is it's not something external to you. You weave your local time, each of us.
That's what the circadian rhythm is. I mean, it's your internal clock, your internal biological clock. Time is literally internal to you. In
Right.
the
But it's
established
not
outside
self-made
environment.
selfishly is the
Yeah.
trick. It's an
Mhm.
artifact of your local continuation geometry, the place you live, the space you're standing, the act you're taking. Each of those things comes from the world's conditions, not your mind, right? Your mind is just another extension of those conditions into you, right?
Mhm.
So the world passes its signal into your sensors, and your sensors put it into your head, and your head makes time. Your brain makes time. And so anybody claiming that there's a global perception of it is just already living inside of a broken frame that's slowly killing them.
Hmm. Well, everybody, we have Satoshi Shon that joined. I don't know if he's going to turn our screen on and join us,
Hey, y'all.
and
Hey,
then
buddy.
yeah.
Good to see you.
It's good to
I
see
mean,
you too there,
hear you. I
Lori.
haven't seen you yet, but hear you.
Yeah, it's good to hear you. It's good to see you.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was really interesting, what y'all were talking about it. And it's true. Especially, I think y'all were talking about work, but I think it's the escapism, like a video game.
Mhm.
If you play a video game, it's like, for 5 hours are gone, in like 20 minutes.
Mhm.
And I think it's because you're just
Computers
just
are so
living in the
rich
moment.
with experiences, right? If you pay attention to the details in a video game, you could endlessly walk around just one stage after you've been cleared it of enemies.
That's
I
what I
do that a
like.
lot, actually. I never finish a video game because I spend all my time walking around looking at the details.
Yeah, no, I used to do that all the time with like Red Dead, especially the first one when it came out when I had time. But even with the second one, I'd play Red Dead and I'd get on at like 7, 8 o'clock in the evening, and I would just mess around, go around town, like causing some chaos, and then eventually I'd slow down and just go look at the details, go out into the middle of the forest, desert, start hunting, just literally just hunt. Next thing you know, what this starts out as me just like kind of effing around, turns into me literally actually hunting. Next thing you know, it's like it's 10 o'clock in the morning the next day, and all I've done from like probably 10 to 10 p.m. to 10 a.m. after 3 hours of messing around I start from 10 p.m. to 10 a.m. literally just hunting, tracking, skinning, finding what I want to hunt, and just like enjoying the experience, and then like getting immersed into that environment like I'm actually there. And the next thing you know, like time is gone. It's like, what happened to my night or even my morning? I need to go to sleep.
Awesome. That's really awesome. One of my favorite experiences like that was the time I insisted. So we got Christmas break and PlayStation 2 and Gran Turismo 2 at the same time, right? All at once. It was PlayStation 1, Gran Turismo 2. And they had the 24 hours of Le Mans, right? And I was like, yes, I'm really doing it. I'm not pausing. I'm gonna make myself be the driver for the whole 24 hours. I'm only gonna go to the bathroom on pit stops, and I'm gonna pause it then. And or no, I wouldn't pause it. That's right. I wouldn't leave the pit. I would let the racers get ahead of me while I went to go. You know, just to see what it would be like if I actually did it. Granted, I wasn't driving with a team, so I actually did two people's roles, but that was one heck of a way to lose 24 hours of clock time.
Exactly. Hey, Andrew, you've been quiet down there.
I mean, I never played Gran Turismo, but I was a big Midnight Club fan. I really enjoyed Midnight Club awesome. Too. And Perfect Dark. I mean, it's different consoles, but still great games.
Dark. Oh.
I used to spend hours playing that game.
Remember the Xbox 360 version, Perfect Dark Zero or whatever?
Yeah.
That one was great.
Yeah, it was cool. Yeah,
we used to play that the zombie attack one, where like if you kill someone, they become a zombie, right? And then last man standing is the not zombie winner, and they get to be the starting zombie next time. That was a great game. I was killer with that disc weapon that you could throw into an enclosed space and bounce around.
I never played it online. I only played the single player campaign.
Oh, this wasn't online. This was literally like I used to throw split screen video game parties, back in the day before the internet was big enough.
That's what we'd go to youth
My
group.
buddies from the Hy-Vee kitchen, if you're watching, shout out.
We'd go to youth group at this local Baptist church back in the day, and we would just hang out and play games, and then we'd have our little function, our group game that we the communal fellowship game that the youth minister would have us do, and then we'd have like a Bible study, and then after that we were done, and it was like a free for all because the youth minister was finished, but we would all stay, and then we would we'd bring our Xboxes or use the Xbox that was already there, and like we'd hook them all up to like multiple TVs. And then we just stay there like for 3 hours just in the church and just play Halo on split screen.
Evangelism. Did you guys see what I did there? Evangelism plus local area network party. Evangelism.
Elandovism.
I'm playing Skyrim again, and
amazing.
It's like, but it's so. And it had the 25th anniversary edition, and they upgraded everything, but. I watched this video on YouTube, and this guy was like, I don't use fast travel. He's like, and the game is so much better.
It's the only play.
He said, this world is like insane. And it really is. I mean, like the views and the detail and just the crazy thing, like bug goes by, a bird, shadow, is on the ground, you gotta look up. But
It's the only way you'll ever read all the books too, is if you walk.
he's like, you gotta walk, and you just absorb it all. She goes, it's a little bit longer, but it's the game. And then he said, and this was a big point, and it goes to what y'all were talking about. He goes, when I was fast traveling, I was not in the game, I was in the task. It's like,
Right.
I have this mission. I'm going to go
You're
here.
min-maxing instead of playing.
I want to, He goes, but when I would walk, it was about play. It was like everything in the game was playing the game and stuff along. There was like the journey, nothing just is that kind of thing. But he goes, the game is so much better when you don't cheat with the fast travel. Like just kind of
it really is.
The most fun way to play is to do it the South Park way and grind in the first forest until you're top. You max your stats at the first town. Then you don't have to min-max.
That's what that was my favorite. Like, I'm going Grand Theft Auto now. Like, San Andreas, ultimately the best Grand Theft Auto game, right? Probably the most expansive because you had 3 different counties. And I would, whenever I would get a chance to where you can actually fast travel to like all your safe havens, I would not do that. Like, I would just use the freeway because it was just so much better just to drive. And you get immersed into the actual world, and you have to actually go places, and then you start exploring, and then you start finding the secrets, that the little Easter eggs, because you're actually exploring. It's so much better to actually just immerse yourself.
Yep.
Go on.
And I think you can definitely
literalists too. So everywhere you see construction, they're referencing to a hiding spot. By the way, for anyone playing that, look for construction. That means the devs were there. Yellow paint.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can definitely see the consequence of enabling fast travel and stuff like that. Because if you could go back and look at like Assassin's Creed, they didn't used to have that, and it was a very popular game because they had all a whole bunch of different things to do, and you could pursue it, or you could just run around, screw around, and then they kind of started implementing that, and it all kind of went downhill. Now I'm sure that also has to do with the narrative, but it isn't a coincidence, I don't think, that
the maps got too big.
The crazy thing about Assassin's Creed and its narrative, like you pointed out, because it does veer into the obnoxiously ahistorical in the message sendy sense that we won't even use the buzzwords for because everybody's tired of hearing them. But the crazy thing is you slowly see the things start to rot from the inside out, to where first the ontology remains. You get the philosophy of the Nords, right, or of the Norse, pretty well embedded. Although they probably actually did the game a disservice by making it too soft, because the Norse economy was primarily driven by slave trading, and they did not have an economic game for that. But if we wanted to be completely historically accurate, those boats were mostly the world's first venture capital firms for human trafficking ops.
Oh yeah, they would go on raids, and then they would take the women, the children. They would end up selling them down to the Islamic hordes in North Africa, and then it was a mess. That
reminds me, buddy. I learned about this on a stream called Crown and Dagger, or the guy's called Crown and Dagger. I think it's his channel's named something different, but you guys should look it up, because this guy tells dark history, right? Like,
I've heard it.
You want to find out exactly what was brutal about the Roman Empire, who Commodus really was, for example. A psychopath, far beyond anything they illustrated. History is large part forgotten, but this guy's pulling historians' dirty secrets out. The amusing part is it all makes states look bad. So, maybe a coincidence. I don't believe in that coincidence anymore, but you guys might.
I still think that Rome should come back, because honestly, the roads were better.
It never left.
It never really left. Yeah.
It took a hiatus.
The Roman bureaucracy is literally the same model we operate on.
Mm-hmm.
I watched this interview with this chick. She wrote a book about Russian history, and it's crazy. When the victors always write the history, but then even if they win, other people still write the history for the other side, unless they're conquered. Like we wrote the history for the West for the Soviet Union, whereas the Soviet Union, they grew up with a different history. And there's stuff like Stalin, completely different dude. And then like the real, like we're taught this like basic vanilla, thing. And
Stalin was a ruler in our model, honestly.
but like Trotsky, that's not even his name.
Poor Trotsky.
He was a
True
Jew.
believer.
He was a Jew, and his name was like Rabinowitz or something. He bought the name Trotsky and changed it.
Mm-hmm.
See, they're taught all this, but then him and who's the guy that started it? Lenin. So
He took issue with the Vanguard Party idea. Was the problem with Trotsky?
But hold on. So they're all. Trotsky's in he lives in Switzerland, and Lenin lives in New York, and neither one of them have jobs, but they live in nice places, and they have chauffeurs. They're all financed by bankers, right? And then bankers give them a buttload of money and send them to Russia, and Lenin gets caught in Canada. They catch him at the border because he's getting out that way. And they're holding him. This is all like documented stuff. They're holding him. And then right before they send him off for processing, they get a phone call to let him go because they stop him at the border and he has like tons of money and gold. So they let him go. But it's documented that they had him and they like booked him and everything at the local, level. So anyway, they get there, they start doing it. Stalin, did you know he wanted to be a priest?
Yeah. Actually, knew a little bit about that guy's history.
So he wants to be a priest. Mother's super religious. He's, super like happy, loving guy. Finds the woman he loves. They have a kid. His wife dies.
When she's 14.
Well, his wife dies, right? And then he's like, oh, well, obviously there's no God. My life is a lie. This is terror. And then he just basically grieves and goes nuts. Leaves his son and he's not even Russian. He's Georgian. And then he hears about this movement with Trotsky and Lenin, communism. And he's like, oh, this is what I believe in. So he's this ultra believer in communism and equality, and we're all, blah, blah, blah. But he's crazy.
Dangerous to desire belief in anything.
But he's crazy because his wife died and he's basically turned his back on God and everything. So the foundation's laid. Then he goes up there, but then he discovers that Trotsky and that it's all fake and they're all financed by the elites. And he then loses his whole faith again. And that's when he starts arresting everybody because they're all pieces of shit liars. And but Trotsky to this day is a traitor. He's considered a traitor by the Russian people.
Well, I mean, depending on who you ask, I guess. He was a traitor to the notion of Vanguard Party, really. That was the thing that Trotsky ultimately kind of ran away from, I think. If you read between the lines of his history, he threatened the ruling party, right? And we all know what happens when you threaten a ruling party.
Are you about the czars?
No, any ruling party in any regime that organizes itself hierarchically in a Roman-style bureaucracy, aka modern nation state.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of. Oh, sorry.
No, they killed the czars because Nicholas. First off, they were cousins to the British royalty and everybody.
Yeah,
Nobody would help them. Nobody would help them because this dude was against the one world order, and he was against war. He was like, "Hey, man, but he was Russia. he was the big country. He's like, we have tons of resources. There's no reason for everyone to be struggling. Let's all come together and be friends. We're related. And they're like, man, we got to kill this dude. He is bad for business. It's just a totally different, thing than what we're taught.
Well, I mean, if you look back at the history of the Russian Revolution, they followed our model to a degree. Is the fact that they were trying to be decentralized, and lo and behold, it didn't work. So someone took the reins and centralized it, just like they did with the Articles of Confederation to the Constitution.
What if the illusion, though, is instability, right? Like the reason we have all of this, sort of maybe the right word or the right colloquialism is sort of out of the Old West, the Durman strang of it, so to speak, right? Maybe it's not really chaos if we let go of the reins, and people don't really think about that very much, right? We have this struggle to prevent chaos, and what if it's the struggling to prevent it that's causing it?
Well, a big consequence of this is, like in the American Revolution, they put money on the line and they expected an immediate result. If you ever put money on the line for something like that and you're too impatient to wait for things to grow organically, you're not going to be finding any satisfactory outcome. You have to be able to be patient, otherwise you're gonna you're really gonna you're just gonna say, okay, that's it. I can't. We have to have total control here.
Well, the other mistake is they think that what they're doing is resulting in an outcome, right? Like, you guys ever see that Ghibli movie, My Neighbor Totoro?
I love it.
Yeah,
I love Totoro.
That scene where the girls are out back with the Totoro and his little sidekicks, and they're trying to get those trees to grow, those acorns.
Yeah.
And they waited a long time. They wouldn't grow, and they experienced this forcing it to grow into a huge tree. And then they woke up the next day, and it was there. Did they sprout because they waited long enough, or did they sprout because Totoro helped? Or is Totoro himself almost a metaphorical reference for the time it takes to grow things?
What was you saying, Sean? Sorry, we didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, you said if you put money down, you expect immediate results. You're gonna be, and I said that's how Firefly was canceled.
That is exactly why Firefly was canceled, and that is gay because
and they threw it in out of order too.
That too.
They never even gave it a chance.
Yeah,
but they really didn't.
It's coming back, so
is it?
It is, which is awesome.
Yeah,
That's great.
It's gonna be animated, but it's the original cast except for the one or two people that died. Just one or two people that died aren't coming back? Yeah, everybody's on board.
That's awesome.
But everyone's
Summer Glau was my college or late high school college era celebrity crush.
Yeah, like she's
anything go on a date with Summer Glau.
Like she's decent, and then you got Papillion, who's a huge star, and Wash, who's a huge star. So there's no they're like, we can't do the show. We're all too busy. So they're doing it animated so they can do it at different studios. Lay the voice tracks down and all that, but they have it all done. Everything's.
What's amazing though is the fact this, because you saw this when they canceled the original series of Star Trek, but then they brought it back. They kind of finish it out with the animated, which I like the animated, but they could do a little bit more because of the animation compared to what they could on studio on set with the original series for the time,
which was one of the reasons why it failed.
Yeah.
Have you watched it recently?
I haven't watched it recently.
You can watch it as an adult, and it is on par with the show.
Yeah,
that's one reason why it wasn't. Because they were like, "Oh, we can do more," but cartoons were like, "Oh no, you can dumb it down for a 3-year-old."
Yeah,
have colors on the screen, and they're like, "Nah, man, we can do more. Now we can have people on the bridge with 4 arms." There's a dude on the bridge who's got an arm coming out of his chest. That couldn't happen on the show. So
No.
but the stories, and there's like, it's way before, like, anime really took
Mhm.
off, and there's consequences, there's death, there's a lot of other. It was very much like the show. You can
Oh
watch it
yeah.
on Amazon. I mean, I own them all, but you can watch it on Amazon. It's weird how good it is as a show, and you can compare it to like anime nowadays and other stuff, and
hmm
it's on that level.
And that's what the brilliance is like with animated is like if Firefly comes back and it's animated, that's what they can do. They can do a lot more. They can expand off of the original show and hit the pieces that they were missing. And they could still do a lot more because of like the CGI craze in the early 2000s. But now they can do even more with what you can do in animation nowadays, especially with AI. I mean, in comparison to what they can do with live action anyways because of CGI, but now you can do a lot more because of the animation.
So
I'm
they were
intrigued.
they were talking about like how they couldn't really reboot the show anyway because everybody's like 25 years older,
Yeah.
and it just and that so. But then I said to my kids, I'm like, I know how they could do it. And I'm like, what? He goes, they just walk back onto the ship, and they're like, man, I can't believe we got arrested by the Alliance smuggling.
Mhm.
We've been in prison for
Like they've
25
still been
years.
at it for all those years.
Yeah.
We've
Exactly.
been
Yeah.
in prison for 25
Yeah.
years, and now we're out.
Yeah.
Let's
Dude, we can use AI to tell flashbacks, and it won't feel like you're cheating.
yeah.
Mm.
Well, speaking of smuggling, I want to finish up the point real quick about what I was talking about the United States and American Revolution compared to the Soviet Union, right? They had war.
Go to junction pretty soon.
In just a second, yeah. I had to
Cool.
leave out here at an hour, but
We can
they
check
had
behind you.
war
Some important
communism.
stuff.
Yeah, they had war communism, right? And
Mhm.
they realized it wasn't working, so they relaxed the rules. And then, fortunately, but you know what I mean.
Mhm.
It worked out for the fact that the economy started to recover. And they're like,
Mhm.
oh, well, maybe we just relax it just a little bit. Maybe it's not so hard line on the rules. And
Tennessee Valley
then,
Authority was the first model for helping them figure this out.
yeah, and then after, unfortunately, or say fortunately, I don't know. It really depends on whose side you're on here. Stalin came into power because what's his name died, and he went back to war communism, and the whole Soviet Union struggled with the Great Terror until Stalin died, and it all started to come unraveling because they realized they had to let go of the grip of power.
Communism wouldn't have succeeded if it wasn't for the United States intervening in the Russian Civil War.
What
Ain't that
if
shit?
what what we have now
After there was the
and
British,
late-stage
they had
communism
spies.
are functionally
Yeah,
identical?
but-
Have you
But
guys ever
the-
thought about
the-
the strong thesis that really what happened was the 1935 to 1945 thinly veiled progressive movement, where the progressive was a known euphemism for a supporter of Russian-style communism, who had these kids who became professors who trained the current generation of agitators in the Marcusian fashion of destroying the system to bring about the original Marxian idea, the Engels-Marx idea of you don't force it. There's no vanguard party. It emerges. But they feel that they've got to get capitalism out of the way first. So what they're doing is rotting it from within.
It was Lenin. That's what I was talking about. I couldn't remember the guy's name. It was Lenin.
Yeah, that's the reason why Woodrow Wilson, towards the latter half of the World War I and into the Russian Civil War, sent American troops over to Russia to side with the White Russians. The White Russians was the epitome of that Marxian idea, that Marxian England idea, going against the Lenin Trotsky style that was being fulfilled.
Like Marx imagined a singularity style emergence of communism.
Mm-hmm. Little violence here and there isn't a bad thing, but at the same time, after we get the state in our own hands, we start kind of webbing it out. We kind of just stick our tentacles.
Violence is a dangerous tool, right? Because it can close possible futures. right? And if we follow the logic all the way through, right, the idea of a kid in India who invents something new or discovers something new in math that never gets heard, right? There's actually a live example of that where some genius kid pulls off something that no freaking trained mathematician ever could, and he just he did the thing that people did instead of email back then, mailed letters to Oxford and major universities in England. Have you guys ever heard the story?
Karl Marx emailed Abraham or
Emailed.
mailed Abraham Lincoln. There's no evidence he ever read it, but
Yeah.
I fell into that trap.
Well, I mean,
Marx is a big proponent of the free soiler identity and the ripened social experiment, and he was very close with Horace Greeley, who was very close with Abraham Lincoln. Not to say that Lincoln was probably a big fan of Marx, which I don't think he would have been.
Lincoln was an asshole.
Lincoln was an asshole, but Lincoln was also an asshole because of some manic depressive ideas.
He founded the second reformation of the empire, right?
Yeah. So, but we're almost to an hour in, and I know that Andrew needs to cut off a little early. So, Andrew, you have anything that you want to add or say before you got to skedaddle?
Just that, we was talking with people that Marx knew people that knew Lincoln, right? Well, I mean, it's weird that there are people that knew Max Stirner, who also knew what's his name, Friedrich Nietzsche, but they didn't know each other directly. It's weird how these people in history know each other, but indirectly, intermediaries.
The social graph tells a lot of story of history that people ignore.
Yeah.
You want to know something crazy? Kennedy, best friend was Marx, and his cousin's name was Carl.
I think it's pretty clear that the Kennedys were okay with the idea of destroying capitalism forever.
The Lincoln Kennedy weird things, but I'm just making a joke. Like his secretary's name was Lincoln. Lincoln's secretary's name was Kennedy, and all that kind of weird stuff.
He was assassinated in a Ford.
Yeah.
It is kind of coincidental the way that Kennedy was kind of shaped in comparison to Lincoln. It's weird.
Well, if they assassinated him, it probably meant that they were afraid that he would found a new iteration of empire. I wonder what his would have looked like.
That is the question, because he wanted to divorce from the Federal Reserve. He wanted to eliminate the CIA because it was a failure. That's basically the real reason. And
he was not okay with there existing a Department of Dirty Tricks.
Yeah,
I mean, the CIA was supposed to be basically what the NSA is now. It's supposed to be a newspaper that, for the president, that knew about as much as possible about what people were doing and
right. And now it still is. It's just that there's a newspaper called the Internet, and they just impose it upon everyone.
Yeah.
Well, I gotta get out of here, guys. So I'll see you later.
Every time we go on X,
Everybody, wave goodbye to Andrew.
See you later, guys.
And with that, honestly, the CIA, the real issue is the way that it was formed. It was formed in subversion, anyways, to apply that it was supposed to be for intel, but it was never utilized for intel. It was always sabotaged.
Right. The idea is this: really simple. If other nations can do it and we are not doing it, we are exposed. Therefore, the Department of Dirty Tricks is called for because everybody else will be doing it anyway. Right. So the argument is we have to do evil shit because other people are doing evil shit. Otherwise, we will get mowed over by the evil shit.
Something I thought was really, really interesting about
I didn't see that corrupted us.
About this
corruption.
Iran thing is that so much of it was like led by the CIA, or like all the intelligence was stuff from the CIA because they've been doing this is their playground. It's Iran.
Oh yeah.
But all of the talking heads on TV are like, why is the CIA involved in this? Why is the CIA? It's like, that's what they're supposed to have done. They're not supposed to be doing the shit they're doing. They're supposed to just be intelligence. and they
Yeah.
give you information.
Now the CIA is not even the CIA though. They just contract with organizations that NGOs approve. The real CIA is in the NGOs now.
Just says Frank Wisner.
But it's like that's what their job was. It
Yeah.
was just
Well,
to
that's what.
give information, and then the military would, depose or do whatever the president. They were just an intelligence gathering. That's why
But that
they had
wasn't.
little guns.
Yeah. But that wasn't the vision of Frank Wisner. Frank Wisner wanted to ensure that the CIA was truly a special war on the ground, like civilian style war apparatus. Like it was made for war. I mean,
Well, I mean, it's an information warfare wing.
not initially. It was mostly just it was a terrorist organization.
Right.
Literally.
Well, what is terrorism but information warfare based on or initiated by real acts in the physical world? Right. You don't defeat the United States by blowing up the Twin Towers. You defeat the United States by what they do in reaction to that from the information.
That's true. That's very
That was
true.
that was the reason they deleted that Bin Laden video that explained his letter where he described his motives. Right? Like, they didn't want us to know the motives because the motives would have actually stopped the process of self-destruction that we initiated when we decided the Patriot Act was the vision for the future we needed to follow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Had we read
And instead,
the letter that Bin Laden produced, we would have seen that he was trying to get us to do exactly that.
and instead we've created this illusion where this narrative to where we place people at a strategical forefront of heroicism by giving guys like Alan Dulles an airport.
Yeah, when
Evil
that guy
man.
deserved, and I'm speaking generously here, a shameful exile. No. We did not. We needed to take a lesson from the Assyrian kings, and we need to not let him die. We need to display the thing that he became, that we made of him because of what he tried to do, very publicly for as long as possible. He should be kept in perfect health, right? But just made be displayed as wrong.
Send him to a Yemenese prison. That's what we should have done.
No, make him talk every day on a podcast about all of the things that he did wrong, that he misunderstood, that he didn't get right. That would be the proper punishment.
Isn't that what they're doing now? Like honestly, because you see, you go on the podcast circuit nowadays, and like you see all these former CIA operative unleashes the secrets of the CIA. It's like what?
Let it hang out. Part of the strategy.
Yeah. Why would they want to admit their secrets? Because they know that we're stupid and they have us by the balls.
Well, and because we've weaponized the Streisand effect to do direction at scale.
I watched one of those guys. There's John Kiriakou. You know who he is?
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear you.
Oh, I said I watched this one podcast where two of those guys went at it. You know who John Kiriakou is?
I've heard the name, but I can't put a face to it.
He's the one with the glasses. He has kind of a little bit of a whinier voice, but
I've actually listened to him.
He works for RT, Russia Today. And then there's the guy with the hair, like
not a bad outlet.
Andrew Bustamante, guy with a big hair, missing tooth, Everyday Spy. So those are the two big guys that are on the circuit. And one of them,
they're awesome for platforming American dissidents, even though it's weaponized against the United States on purpose.
Bustamante tells the guy that you're a traitor. He goes, "You're a traitor," and like he pushes it. He's like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Dude, you work for the Russian government." He goes, "You're." He goes, "Yeah, because I retired from the CIA and MSNBC and Fox, and they weren't breaking down my door." He said, the Russian government came and they said, "Hey, if you want to do a radio show or a TV show, we'll pay you when you can, have money." He goes, "That's why I did it." He's like, "You don't think you're pushing propaganda?" And he goes, "Aren't you?" Yeah, they went back and forth, and the dude's like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
And
Sorry, I don't like your version of the Overton window, buddy.
yeah, it was pretty funny. It was good. It was good.
That kind of ties back into the blockchain and how the block wars are, and I mean, there's a little propaganda in there too, woven.
Blockchain was actually a poorly run propaganda exercise. That's why we failed in 2018. We didn't run the propaganda machine the right way.
Explain that for the
If we'd
many
been
viewers
smart,
that we have.
if we'd been smart, we'd have recognized that the institutions we were attacking were long-lived and that they remembered 1992 and that PGP was an embarrassment and the Clipper chip was an embarrassment that destroyed careers, right? The idea of giving the government access to private encryption only died completely in court because they failed so hard, right? They went after a guy who printed the code for PGP into a book and then tried to punish him for exporting arms, right? Like, can an American be punished for publishing a book to the world? The answer is no, not if we have First Amendment, right? But the mistake that we made is we didn't realize that they would learn from that. They didn't want to coalesce any kind of resistance to the systematic sort of dilution of the spirit of blockchain. And we had so many people who had no idea of its history that they forgot that it was a cypherpunk project. And the government was about to remind people of the cypherpunks, right? Instead, they reminded us of all of our divisions. And we had no unifying ideal to message under because everybody was afraid to say the truth out loud, right? Had we all been speaking the language of the cypherpunk, the idea that this isn't just something we want because we want to be free of you. This is inevitable. This is a machine that will exist as soon as the principles for it are found. And there's nothing that anyone can do to stop it. However, it can be perverted and twisted to dystopia if we ignore the fact that this is coming no matter what we do, right? And so what we've got is a machine compromised on ideals very effectively from top to bottom in most cases, with a few bright, shining exceptions, right? Bitcoin could still be that because it hasn't let itself evolve very far after it got corrupted. There are others out there that are already that. Quietly watch Ethereum Classic, right? The only thing that's wrong with them is you can't get your money out real fast because the centralized exchanges have been told not to. Look at any of the privacy chains. Those guys are just a nightmare to authorities. They're like basically not talking about it to avoid Streisand affecting it into popularity.
We blew it with
they
blockchain.
instead Streisand affected towards stablecoin and Trump coin and other bullshit. The institution running that machine has never changed hands, and it hasn't changed hands under Trump. It hasn't changed hands under. You can go back to before Reagan, and it was still there. That's Dulles' legacy.
It is interesting that they are doing that. How that privacy coins are just off the radar for regular people. You know, it's like, don't even talk about it.
Oh yeah, that's so hard out the Overton window. They don't want anybody saying it. We probably just automatically reduced our reach by even vaguely mentioning it.
Yeah, we blew it with blockchain. We created a parallel system to fiat and allowed it to be hijacked. Now we need the killer blockchain app that is a parallel and better to a different governmental system.
There's an architectural flaw in it too that we got to fix. And if we get that right, then there's no CryptoKitties problem. That's just the first killer app.
Yeah, how do we get to that? Yeah, how do we get to that level? How do we get a full-blown blockchain app for the layman user that we can figure out a different system that runs parallel? We
create a system very similar to a blockchain that allows for multiple parallel orders to be admissible at heads simultaneously, rather than just one head revision with a series that follows one global time sequence. If we have the idea of many local times in mind when we design the directed acyclic graph that replaces the block header, then every single block is just the current head slice of the blockchain's perspective of a broad net mesh of reality that's ongoing in parallel. So we just haven't got it in our heads that we don't need a linear clock in order to create things that are stably ordered and permanent. So what you're saying is we shouldn't use base 44, the new AI operated
app making app.
Oh, we totally should use those. We should just force them to make the kind of code that does the thing the right way.
I might
Highly recommend, by the way, finding a blog called Gray Mirror on Substack and pulling the article called Red Pilling Claude.
Curtis Yarvin?
A place to start to see what's possible.
That's
though even better would be to take my research papers and drop them in. They're not public yet, so you can't do it, but I'll make that possible.
Design Heretic on Substack, everybody. Go search Design Heretic or just Greg Lang over on Substack. A whole slew of different research. And
centralization after fashion, we still stayed bound to a clock, though. I am. The last chain we have to break is our adherence to the idea of a global monolithic clock that controls one exact, precise moment of reality.
One thing that blockchain did teach was the power of decentralization. I think people are even the simple-minded that don't really want to adapt are starting to realize we need to adapt to some sort of decentralized model.
But like we were talking about,
decentralized.
Decentralization is an ancient tactic. It's an ancient thing. You know,
it was probably the starting state, actually.
So I think that's just people realizing the importance of it.
Well, I think like you can go back to post Rome and in medieval Europe with feudalism. I mean, that's a decentralized state, but you can still have corrupted measures even within a decentralized state. You just now have more centrally bound, smaller tyrants. So there is a risk even with decentralization. There's benefits, but there's also risks. No matter what, it's life. Life has risks. How do you mitigate those risks? How do we use blockchain to mitigate the corruption that can still occur even within blockchain while decentralizing, but don't decentralize so far that we end up centralizing even on a smaller scale?
Yep, absolutely. That's the killer app for blockchain, I think, ultimately, or the blockchain-like systems. Because think about this. Like, if you died tomorrow, what would happen to everything that you saved on your phone? If you've secured it well, then nobody will be able to unlock it. Right? I mean, seriously, if I were to poof out of existence, part of the reason I send zip files with my work around to people is just so they have a snapshot in case I get bust, you know? I'm managing my own bus risk, and everybody has that bus risk. The bus risk that everybody sees themselves is different, right? Like, but there's definitely stuff in your phone that you want your wife to be able to get access to if you died, right? That kind of stuff. Bank accounts, all that. You can't really secure that through an intermediary safely, because then someone can, master key exploit you with a legal or illegal warrant or warrantless, however you want, like, or whatever, right? You can be spied upon in perfect detail if someone had access to your phone, so you got to secure it. But at the same time, you don't want your family to not have it when you die. You don't want your legacy to be lost. So we live our lives in these machines, and the personalized chatbot you have customized as a way to know you, if people can get access to it, for example. That to me is why that would be a killer app for blockchain, because you could have this thing out there that would allow for a process where maybe it's done by a DAO. They could use some really cool encryption tech called key split, which you can find on GitHub. Maybe
I don't want. What if I don't want someone to know what my
by all means, don't use the app.
Yeah, my personalized chatbot, because I mean I'm philosophically anti-Semitic.
Well,
or maybe I do want people to know that.
Make sure to include a bunch of instructions with it that connects up to the Dead Man Switch app, and if it triggers, then you put into place a new set of instructions that elides all the parts of your history you don't want revealed. That's what governments have always done.
Yeah. ChatGPT, let everybody know I'm an anti-Semite. and then blow up.
Plus, we all know you're being facetious because you see people as individuals first.
Yeah, I was going to say that I think that the word has been really co-opted by
It has.
so much has been
It really
co-opted
has.
by Zionists. I mean, you literally, 10, 15 years ago, that was a bad thing. That was just like saying radical Muslim. It was Zionist was a radical
or illegal alien or whatever word
it was,
the
but it was
communist establishment decides we're not be allowed to say anymore.
It was bad. It was a bad thing. I mean, if you're Muslim, that's great. If you're a radical Muslim that believes, what that meant is that you think you should kill people for not being a Muslim. That's bad. And there's Jews, great. Zionists are basically Nazis. They just believe Jews are the master race. It's this thing. I don't understand how that became an acceptable thing to say Zionism.
Oh, I think that's a fair use of the word Nazi, to be fair. But in the usage you mean, I agree. They're definitely fascistic assholes in their insistence on their own rightness.
Yeah,
that's like me. Like I look at Islam. I look at Islam for what to the individual. I mean, they don't necessarily know. Most Muslims don't actually know what's in the Quran and how contradictory it is. And the theology is evil and violent. And that's where you get the radicals. But you can teach them that their Quran is contradiction and that there is more to life than what is in your book. And you can find the peacefulness. And there are Muslims out there that majority of them are peaceful. They just want to talk to God. They want to just praise the Lord, and they want to, they want to live life
with the divine.
Yeah. And they want to, and
they don't have a collectivist bent under their entire religion. They just protect each other very aggressively because that's the moral mandate to the individual.
And I think that's where politics and intelligence apparatus of our modern statist communist regimes that have come about. They've co-opted Islam for what effectively was dying out until World War I, when we pretty much stole all their land. They're the British and the French with all these secret deals, splitting the Ottoman Empire. I mean, for resources.
It was an attempt to calculate a world order that would be perfect, and it failed.
Exactly. And it really did fail. And then what happened? Well, you had a bunch of pissed off Arabs and Turks and all that. And what more can they do but go back to their theological reverence and go back to their radicalism?
Right. Well, and the trick is the same people setting up, by and large, all agreed that Russia was going to win because communism was better. That was the mindset at the time, is how do we adapt to the fact this is going to overtake the world?
It kind of did.
Because all of those people at the time wanted it, right? So what do? If you want to make it easy for a new system to sweep a place, you make it just unstable and weak. That's exactly what they did. They destabilized solid foundations by slicing the map the way they did. The whole exercise was on purpose. They didn't want any of those things to become powerful again.
The truth of the matter, though, is Russia may have fallen within their scope of their idea of communism, but their web of subversion, of Bolshevik subversion, it succeeded. Because they were able to get their web out before they finally collapsed, in my opinion. And we're seeing the resilience of it today. The West is collapsing because they've adopted Marxist Leninist philosophy with a hint of Zionism. There, William.
Except Monaco. That's the key. Monaco does not coerce its citizens because they don't have taxes.
Monaco doesn't. Liechtenstein doesn't. St. Kitts and Nevis doesn't. All these micronations are the model that we need to look at.
Truly. I mean, if we want to have structured hierarchical states at all, which is a choice you can make, and there's some benefits if you do it right. But if you'd rather have some other structure, there are other stable structures. Right. The key is they just can't limit the possible futures of the people that live there. And the second they start doing that, they set up their own collapse.
Actually, speaking of Iran and Iraq having Christian churches and communities, once the U.S. got involved and invaded Iraq, that was bad news for the Assyrian Church of the East and all the Chaldean churches in Iraq, because it created such a cesspool of sectarian violence between using the rivalries between the Shia and the Shiite and the Kurds within the Muslim, that it created a vacuum that had led to just a disproportionate discrimination against everybody, from in the Shia discriminated against the Sunni against the Shia, and against the Kurds,
people
and
forget
against the Assyrians.
People forget the stability of that base of civilizations comes from such a long history, right? The time for those things to settle and solidify and become ingrained. You can't erase that by redrawing borders on a map. You know, you really just can't. People are going to live as they are, as opposed to the way we idealize them. And if the map doesn't match what you see, it's not a problem with what you see, it's a problem with the map.
That's like saying like imperialism was kind of a good thing for Africa, but then all the imperialists left, but they left their lines on the map. But then all the tribes came back together and got stuck within those imaginary lines. And look where Africa's at now.
We set up a continuation space that limited the futures of that thing before we turned it loose on itself. Basically, the colonies kept order by force because they created a ridge and pretended it was a basin and said let's force everyone into this basin. But in reality, what they're doing is forcing the whole thing that had settled into stability to distort itself to the point where when they left and stopped forcibly restabilizing it, it couldn't remember where it was supposed to go anymore. It all trickled back differently. The whole thing shuffled. It became unstable. And it may be in a permanent state of metastability where it goes in and out of stability ongoingly because of how it was done.
Like what do you guys think with blockchain? Borders are good to a certain extent in one facet, but it can be overdrawn, just like borderless can be overdrawn into a negative as well. So like with blockchain, is it because it is so borderless in a digital scope, can we get to a world where we can have a mesh of a balance between communities in their security amongst the borderless of a globalized structure?
We have to realize that it's not borderless, right? Blockchain is never borderless. It's local, right? So it has a place within all those borders everywhere it exists. It's just that the mesh extends supranationally if you're thinking in terms of borders, or supranationally if you're thinking in terms of borders, right? The whole thing combines into what looks like a borderless system, even though it's really just a bunch of individuals with their reach amplified. If you think about the whole mesh of nodes, each node is just an over-amplified individual. And that's why it works, right? That's why it's stable. But at the same time, right, the global impact suggests that these places are bettered by using tools of force to keep things out. And that's the whole model they have to go on. And so you have things like guns being turned on software developers in night raids. It's happening here and everywhere. That shouldn't be happening. That's not helping the future. That's narrowing the future. So if we think about protecting ourselves, we can't change the whole world to match what we prefer. We can adapt to that world ourselves within the bounds of our own action. Like we can look around and see things we can influence. And if we act there, to protect ourselves and stop trying to act globally to fix a problem permanently once and for all worldwide, and just fix the world around us, we realize that, oh yeah, it's actually really easy to keep my kids off my computer, right?
Sean, you got any expertise to the mix?
Yeah, I was thinking pretty much what you said. It's the security. So you have that. That's the biggest thing about a border, is the security. And that's one thing that blockchain gives you is the security. And like Greg said, it just amplifies reach. Like imagine
if you have to suppress individual information, the information individuals can get to keep your country stable, your border's already not stable anyway.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
like the telephone. I mean, he gave a regular person the reach to talk
Yeah.
to someone super far away. They never would to have information get somewhere super quick. Or before, it was literally like a newspaper that someone would write and then bring it to a different place. I
Well,
mean,
it's the same thing, right?
it was this
It's
time
faster.
frame completely changed. Yeah, everything was faster.
Right. It's definitely out of phase with power. That's for sure. And that seems to be the problem with it. I would agree with you.
So with that, we need to build like certain ecosystems. So the next topic, and I'm going to say,
We have to learn to not try to globally
Yeah.
control things.
yeah,
Just
that's
because
what,
you
yeah,
can globally communicate and imagine doesn't mean that you have any ability to control.
So a nice little transition of that is like the van life and the vehicle nomad uh, style of living that's kind of coming about in our day and age because of the rising costs. Really, it's like, how does that fit into the mix? How can we utilize that to build ecosystems?
Hey guys, I have to jump. My wife needs me.
Uh-oh.
Nothing bad. I'm just needed. I promised I'd get off when she asked if I was going to get this free time. So,
Well,
we
everybody,
trade times, right? But anyway, I got to bounce because I made a promise.
Okay.
I'll catch you guys later.
we'll finish it off for you, Greg. Everybody,
I think
say bye.
I think it's part of like what Greg we were talking about. Something a good idea has been co-opted.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the van life thing is completely co-opted because people are so and you hit the nail on the head because it didn't rise up like in the 60s, or people were wanting
Mm-hmm.
more like at peace with nature and freedom and that kind of hippy dippy lifestyle. It's not that.
Yeah.
The reason it's growing is because people can't. They're forced into it,
Yeah.
and they're like,
It's
"Hey, let's make the best of a bad situation." That's kind of the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's not bad. Look, I have 5 gallons of water that I can drink before I have to worry about it. It's that. But
Yeah.
people gave up 100, and this is the point which we talked about. My idea is that people gave up the notion, the very basic idea that they could own a place, that they have to live in the vehicle. And that's kind of the idea that I had with starting that ranch where it's just a small plot, but it's yours. It's they own it, and we put it on the blockchain. It's part of a DAO,
Yeah.
but it's no matter what, because things are fluid, man. Like you can have a van, but you don't have anywhere to live.
Exactly.
If you like, I can live on public land, or I can go to the park. I can do this here,
But
but
what happens when they control it?
all that's out of your control. You don't control any of that. Someone else, and they could pass a law. They could look at the homeless in LA.
Yep.
A lot of other smaller cities, they just made it illegal. That was the loophole. You could camp on public land, and some psychotic person said, "Hey, I have a tent on this sidewalk. I am camping on public land." And everybody was like, "You're insane. That's not something like you don't need a law to say that you can't walk up to someone who's eating dinner at a restaurant and fart in their face." Because nobody does it. No one does it.
Yeah. Nobody. Yeah.
But what if people started doing it all the time? Then they would pass a law that you can't do that, and that's what they're doing with homeless. You know what I mean?
And that's the thing about laws is like, technically speaking, I mean, like, let's take the homeless, like being on public, like that's freedom of expression. That's the First Amendment, but you can still find loopholes to establish to go against your freedom of expression because it's just something that people just don't do. And I understand, like, you should have the ability to express yourself, to live where you think you have the means to be able to like be guarded within yourself in the public, but at the same time, and if you against that person don't want to deal with them, try to avoid them. But at the same time, the reason the loopholes are established and you have ordinances, and it's so easy to get through what is constitutionally a right in order to derail those guardrails that are constitutional, is because exactly what you're saying, Sean, is like people don't do that. Like, say somebody just starts going up to somebody on a outside patio outside of a restaurant in downtown LA and just farts in your face. It's like, why would you do that? Why would anybody do that? It's like common decency, it's common sense. Like, out of respect, you shouldn't be going up to somebody and just farting in their face. But I mean, I think that's a little bit of where we are as a society culturally now, because people have lost so much hope because of the cost of living going up and inflation, and that like people have lost the edge of actually being civil. So you are seeing a lot of debaucherous things that like people defecating on the street because there's nowhere else to go, and they're not allowed to go into a store because they're gross, right? That's the pretty much like the real basic reason. Stay out of my store. You can't use this is customer only. So they just shit on the street, and the reason you're seeing that is you have a lot more homeless, and there a lot of homeless have psychological issues as well, because we've opened up through the Community Mental Health Act in the 60s. We opened up to where there's nowhere for these homeless to go, or these mentally ill to go, so they wind up homeless on the street doing drugs and defecating on the street and farting in people's faces, if you really want to go that far.
And the thing, you hit the nail on the head. It's and I think me and Lisa talked about this, or I know I talked about it this week. Is just respect.
Mm-hmm.
And you can use word common decency. All those words, they don't mean what they did a long time ago. Not even a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
like a decade, 10, 20 years ago. It was just a very different. And there's so many, you can look and see there's so many little things. It's not like a one thing. Like the internet, 100,000%,
Mm-hmm.
contributed to the loss of civility.
Oh yeah.
People say things to each other they would never, ever have said to each other before the internet, because they, number one, they think they have anonymity. Number two, they're not there. Like even no matter what, if someone was standing in front of me, they're not going to say like 95% of what they would say online. And you can say it's fear, fine. It's fear, but they still wouldn't say it. It's like not 100% real, because it's you're looking at a screen, you're not looking at a person, you're in your house, you're not there with the person. But once you cross certain lines and you said, I wish your family were all dead, or something terrible. You've crossed that line. You've already said it. Now you say it again, and then other people say it, and then it becomes, like no one you say go kill yourself. It wasn't a real thing. Like a long time, you would never say that to someone. It was so terrible. And now people say it's like a comment on their YouTube videos. It's but that's just the loss of that civility and just respect for people. Like you said, we didn't have to have a law that you wouldn't set your tent up in front of my house or my business and then try to use my water and do it. It wasn't, and then also, like, we choose what our taxes go to. If you're going to stay in the park and where they have like a water faucet and the bathrooms, that's like, it sucks for you that you are homeless and you have to live there, but that's where you live. Okay.
Yeah. William brings up a good point. Like, most people that are homeless now are starting to be, they're vehicle dwellers, they're van lifers because of the circumstances. They probably even have a job. they just can't afford anywhere else, especially out west. Especially, they're
Yeah.
not really druggies or mental health, but I think that's where the law kind of perverts and pollutes society, because when they started dwindling down on like the mental health issue, and there was an issue with like the mental hospitals, obviously you evolve and you adapt, but when they forced it with the Community Mental Health Act, and then you started seeing this overpopulation of like the mentally ill not really having a place to go, and nobody's really building any infrastructure to help them. It's all based on big pharma. You started seeing a mesh of the homeless being mentally ill, and I think that may have been a use of the law to get us ready for the adaptation that this is where we're all going to. This is where they want us all to be at, like down in the dumps with nothing, to literally own nothing and be happy, basically. And I think the mental health issue and the druggy issue was the initial step to get us comfortable with just the accountant from from an accountant firm living in a van down by the river with his family because they
You
can't
know,
afford not even an apartment.
It's funny that you use that term, own nothing and be happy, because they've changed the terms mean respect, like we've talked about, but no one talks about how they changed what happy is.
Yep.
You own nothing and you'll be happy. What is happy? Happy doesn't mean what it meant. Happy was owning the house.
Yeah.
There's no way to be happy if you didn't own the house. And now, like I said, you're like, oh my goodness, I have 5 gallons of drinkable water in my vehicle instead of 3. That's such a load off me. You know what I mean? That's happy. So
Yeah.
it changed. So, because when we first heard that, you own nothing and be happy, it was insane, because our version of happy was there's no way they would fit together. And they've lowered what people think happy is, or what they'll accept as I'm happy, to where now they could fit together.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like happy, it comes to like at the beginning of the show before you jumped on, Sean. We kind of get a little bit into the concept of like high and low bandwidth, and how that can distinguish the purpose in somebody's life and communities, individuals. And I really do. It starts with language, and it starts with the aspect of, in order to bring a society and a culture back up into a more purposeful situation, we have to redefine language, and we have to come out of the abyss of the low bandwidth and come back to a higher wavelength of high bandwidth language. So like happiness needs to mean what happiness used to mean, rather than what they're trying to establish. The powers that be want us to think and perceive what happy really means. Like, what is happiness? So,
and think about this. Go even further. Everyone just says happy now. Before, we used to have like multiple words for different aspects. Like, I love you, but I don't love you like I love my girlfriend. I don't love you like I love my mom. You know what I mean? There's different kinds of love. There's different kinds of happy. It wasn't just this generic term. We had joy. We had contentment. We had gay, for God's sake. So I mean, they literally took a word, made it mean something else, but then it's lost. No one ever says that they're gay in what the word actually means. No one uses the word joy anymore. It was such a joyous time. I was happy. I was so happy, real happy, freaking happy. It's just like you said, they've limited the word. They've limited the emotion by limiting the words to just one word of happy, and then they can just limit that word into a smaller and smaller box until it means something, hardly anything. And language does matter. I don't know.
That's why I think we need to take we do need to take gay back, because gay actually, speaking of, you said joyful, like people don't even say joyful, like that's what gay means, is joyful. To be jolly, like to be gleefully and like
Yeah,
just so
playful.
like really like abnormally happy.
Yeah.
We need to take back gay, because like now it went from meaning jolly and joyful and truly happy to uh, someone who's a homosexual, to somebody who's
To you like
just
shit.
weak and
Yeah, sucks.
weak and a
Yeah.
piece of and then then it came back. Now it's making a comeback, kind of, to mean homosexual, but in reality, I think it's time to take it back and to make it mean what it's supposed to mean, in
Yeah.
that like Middle English sense. It's like I really do think it's we need to go back to the past and grab some language skills,
Yeah.
because I mean it was very eloquent in the way that they spoke. Even language back in the past, even if you were like angry, I mean, to us 21st century brains, we look at them and be like, well, that's not that angry. It's like, because it was eloquent. There was like something
That's funny.
intellectual about it.
That's actually funny that you would say
Mm,
that. I was watching
yeah.
Saturday Night Live, and I'm not happy with Saturday Night Live. It's been sucking.
Hmm.
But this one was really, really funny. So these guys were all, it was like old England, and they're all standing around, and this chick comes up, and she's like, "Hey, hello, gentlemen," and he's like, "Hello, I wanted to stop by your house and say hello," and she's like, "Oh," and then this guy makes a joke about it, and then the chick walks off, and he's like, "How dare you? You embarrassed me in front of this woman, and I can now take my glove off and smack you." And they were like, it was funny because they were being proper, but they're supposed to be super angry, and then they got violent, hitting each other with the glove. But that respect, man, that we talked about, it was there. It's like, I am so pissed at you, but I'm civil, and I'm
Hmm.
not an animal. I'm in control, and I'm not an animal. It's like the main focus was, you're wrong in what you did, and that's what you want to get across. Whereas
Hmm.
now it's like, you're a piece of shit and I hate you, and you're like trying to harm the person back. It's a completely different like paradigm to what we're doing. Before it was
I
more
think
shock. I'm shocked that you don't know what you did. How, like, you did this? How dare you do that? And then you would wait for, like, oh my God, you're right, I'm so sorry, or
hmm
yeah, I did it, and then it would escalate. Now it just escalates to immediate reaction, like, you suck, you attacked me,
hmm
you did this.
I mean, to take away the civility of a nation, of a culture, of individuals in general, I think it comes down to like placing so much, well, like William says, putting a burden on, how am I going to pay my rent? How am I going to pay my mortgage, my utilities? Like, how am I going to pay for groceries? Like, then you're like, what? Now you're redefining happiness, because like now happiness is like, I paid my rent and was able to feed my family. That's happiness. So like, when as William says, lowering obligations can add to some people's happiness. That's, I think, what we need to do. We need to lower the obligation by getting back to the scenario of what what is what exactly does it mean to be happy, rather than material status, pretty much. And I think because of the material status that has been added, and the culture that has been formed from it, and then the dwindling value of our currency, what's causing just inflation to go skyrocket, cost of living to go up, happiness no longer is the norm. Like, because happiness at that point is, I survived, I'm happy. It's
Even the
like, that's
word
not what happiness is. You shouldn't be
even,
surviving. You
even
should
the
be
word
able to live.
even the word
Mm,
inflation is about it shows how it's nothing's inflated. It's
mhm.
devaluation of your currency. What you
Yeah.
have is worth less. Everything's going down, so
Mhm.
you can't afford this. But when you talk about how your money is going inflating and you need more of it, so you're going to make more from your job. It's just such a positive spin on a bad thing, and that's how it always. Like you said, it's all language. Like I said something to Lisa years ago, and it hit her like a ton of bricks, and she's like, it makes such a big deal out of it now because we talk about public schools, but it's not a public school; it's a government school. And she's like, "You're so right," and it hits different, dude. When like you sent your kids to government school. No, what? I would never. I don't trust the government. Well, like, I mean, oh, you know what I mean? It's just how the Democratic Party in the past 20 years has become the. Did I just say Democratic Party?
Yes.
Motherfucker. There you go. How the Democrat Party has become the Democratic Party in all things, and it's literally it's meant to be that way because this is a Democratic senator, and his opposition must not be Democratic. You know what I mean? It's always Republican. It's not like the Republic. They don't use a different word, so they always go, or they went with, instead of Democratic, and it is just it's a nicer thing. It hits the ear better, and it's a leg up. But yeah,
it's also it's also interesting too. Like as their terminology to describe themselves evolves into something positive, they themselves twisted within the political field, especially within the last 20 years, to be more centered in the political systems of today rather than where they were politically like 20-25 years ago. Like now they have power, so now we're more centrist. But before then, they were more for like, we need to get rid of the censorship aspect. We need free speech. We need to be anti-war. We need to stop spending all this much. And then the same thing with the Republicans too, is like the Republicans have ventured into this aspect of like, we campaign like we're I'm going to make libertarians proud of me. They campaign like libertarians, smaller government, smaller limited government, but then they end up doing exactly the opposite when they get into power. And so then now their name's Republican. Oh, that sounds great. They're Republicans. They want a republic. Democrats, democratic. They want to improvise a more democratic system. But in reality, it's not the case.
Yeah. First they got us down to two parties, and then they changed what the party means. It's all a scam, man. It's all a scam.
It's money when it all comes down to it.
Yeah, and that's the word I was talking about. That's the thing we don't realize about the Russian revolution is the Bolsheviks had tried 2 or 3 times, and they failed every time because they didn't have money, and that's what the bankers and the elites in the West. That's what they did, bringing in Trotsky and Lenin. They had shitloads of gold, and then you know how we just shut down U.S. aid.
Do
you know how they moved in tons of gold for the Bolsheviks?
NGS.
this big operation by the Red Cross that moved in. It's right before, like 1917 or 13. Moved into to Russia, but like 80% of the people that went on the Red Cross mission were lawyers and bankers and financiers.
And then you start scratching your head when you start looking at history. I'm like, Why do you need? Why is it lawyers and bankers and bureaucrats and politicians going over there
Yeah, it's
as the Red Cross? Wouldn't you want nurses and doctors?
doctors. Yeah,
Surgeons?
so I thought that was pretty interesting. But see, that's stuff
Mm-hmm.
that like that they're taught in Russian schools, but we're not. There's no way. You know, I learned about
Mm-hmm.
fucking Prescott Bush and how we financed Hitler and gave money.
Mm-hmm.
I learned it from fucking a movie I watched like 5 years ago
Oh yeah.
with Margot Robbie
Mm-hmm.
and Batman. I mean, it's crazy that our country did that. That our
Mm-hmm.
country was almost taken over, and we didn't learn it in school.
Yeah.
You know, and then
Yeah.
because this girl was talking about it, the one that wrote this book, and she's like, "Do you know?" And then the guy's like, the interviewer's like, "Yeah, Prescott Bush, blah blah blah," and she said, "How? Think about that as a foreigner. Is that you were taught about what Prescott Bush did in Union Bank, and then you're also taught that his son, grandson, or son, grandson became president of the
Mm-hmm.
country, and that his grandson or son, I forget which original George was the head of the freaking CIA.
Yeah.
That like
HW. Son.
the CIA went after is what stopped. The CIA and the FBI are the ones that stopped giving money to Hitler.
Mm-hmm.
They had to seize the bank and arrest him, and then they still let them all go.
Mm-hmm.
But imagine how do you reconcile that as a foreigner when you're like looking at America and you're like, what the hell?
You
You know?
start, yeah, and you start going down rabbit holes, and then you start thinking like, perhaps because like wasn't HW head of the CIA at the time of, I think it was around the time Kennedy was president, right? Then you
George
start looking at, yeah, but you
George
look
W.
at you look at the hierarchical structures of these prestigious families, like they're families that are like up here, both the Bushes, the Kennedys, you can go further back with the Roosevelts, but like then you start wondering like, well, could it have actually been an internal struggle between two very powerful, economically prestigious families that were vying for power, and it was really the Bushes versus the Kennedys, and
Uh-huh.
that's what led to Kennedy's assassination. You start going down rabbit holes like, was it really? I mean, is it Israel? Is it the mafia? Like the Kennedys were aligned a lot with the mob, but then Robert Kennedy became Attorney General and then started going against the mob, who helped Jack end up getting president in Illinois, especially with winning Illinois. And then, of course, the Bushes with George W. Bush, they have their Nazi connection with with Prescott. George H.W. is the head of the CIA. They have oil connections in the Middle East. George W. ends up becoming president. So does H.W. before him, after Reagan. I mean, and it starts kind of interconnecting. And then you kind of do have to like, where does Israel align to? Where does Russia align? It's like it's almost like it's just tiered into just one enormous like like family versus family cooperation yet competitive power vacuum. And it's all just, I mean, we don't learn from history.
We only learn that we don't learn. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I don't know. So to sum it all up though, because this is silver linings. How do we take the silver? How do we find the silver lining in all the web of all these lies and false narratives and all this fuckery that's going on in our world today, past, present, and future, son?
It's stuff people don't want to talk about, dude. I think we need um it's how things have changed. We talked about how language have changed and all these things have changed.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the basic principles of how we've got things done has changed.
Mm-hmm.
Watch Starship Troopers.
Oh
You know,
yeah,
when violence never solves anything, you guys like no, violence has always solved everything
it has.
throughout
Yeah.
history, and
Mm-hmm.
we've not given that up. We've given that up as a people. We've given it up to these little small group of individuals and governments and agencies or whoever. These are the people who are allowed to have violence. In most countries, these are the people that are allowed to have weapons.
Mm-hmm.
You know, these are the people that are allowed to have force. And the world's gone to shit. We have to
Mm-hmm.
take our power back as we the people. Because and like I said, dude, it's the respect thing. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if you're in front of me, you're not gonna say shit that you would say online because
Mm-hmm.
and if you're because you're scared,
Yeah.
you don't know if I'm gonna punch you in the face or
Mm-hmm.
if I'm gonna get really pissed or if I'm gonna be you just don't know.
Yeah.
And these institutions should and they don't have any fear of the people,
Mm-hmm.
and that's because throughout the world, those their people's ability to do any kind of violence against their government or their those institutions that they've been taken away.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they're not really taken away; they're given up. They're given up. I mean, they have to.
Yeah.
They usually, unless they're taken by force, and then that's that kind of defeats the purpose. You know that you need it
Mm-hmm.
because they took it away because they beat you. But
Yeah.
if they can get things to where it's nice enough, comfortable enough, and get you to trust them enough to where you give up your power, then that's it. So we have to take our power back, our authority back.
Mm-hmm. And we can do that with through the blockchain, through indirect means for the most part, directly indirect, or we can do it literally by just collecting guns. Because
Yeah, I mean,
sometimes you got to match force with force.
you can do it with violence, or you can do it with taking away the power base of money. And
Mm-hmm.
like everyone talks about building parallel systems,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a kinetic, active thing. We
Mm-hmm.
can't just. I agree with William. I don't think we can vote it. I don't think we can wish it. I think you have to do something.
You do. We have to do something about it. So, forced to protect your rights. Because you don't have rights, anybody. You can only have rights unless you can't have a right unless you can defend it. So, what are rights? So, you need to be able to force yourself or coerce yourself from somebody else who wants to force their rights upon you. So,
If
I
someone
mean,
can take it away, it's not a right.
exactly. Exactly. So, this was a good conversation. I think we should wrap it up though, Sean. So, where can anybody find you?
Satoshi Sean, YouTube, Twitters, Instagrams, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. So go like, subscribe, and hit that bell at Satoshi Sean, and do the same thing with the Legacy Ride as well. So if you want to support, you can join. You can go down, join our Patreon. We want to set up. We want to set up something. We want to do something more. Give you not just the public, but maybe give you a little bit more intimacy as well. But otherwise, like and subscribe to both Satoshi Sean and the Legacy Right, and ring that bell, everybody. So the purpose of everything, and I think blockchain can do it. I think it can help. Is that yeah? We have to figure out ways to get back to ourselves. Respect. So
Yeah,
mm-mm,
respect one another.
mm-mm. So, but I think I'm just gonna do an Irish goodbye. So let's do an Irish goodbye for everybody, Sean.
Okie dokie.
So goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Have a good weekend. See you next week.